Three characters are fighting one creature, and none of them is doing the same job. One is standing where it can reach them and making sure it wants to keep reaching them. One is behind, mending the damage that gets through. One is at range, doing the actual killing. That arrangement is older than most people watching this, and it is the reason a group fight is a conversation instead of three people hitting something at once. We built that before we built anywhere to stand. What you are looking at is a flat plane with a fight on it. No terrain, no weather, no reason to be there. This is the episode about what a fight has to get right before scenery can save it. Underneath the animation, a fight is a stack of decisions that has to come out the same way for everybody watching it. Who is the creature angry at, and why that one? Did this attack land before or after the heal? Is the target still alive at the moment the next blow arrives? Every one of those has to be settled somewhere authoritative and then reported, or two people watch two different fights. The roles exist to make those decisions interesting rather than automatic. If nothing controlled who the enemy attacked, positioning would be decoration. If damage could not be repaired, one mistake would end everything, and nobody would take a risk. If the enemy died instantly, none of it would come up. The three jobs are a machine for producing a situation where what each person does in the next second actually matters, which is the only definition of good combat we have found that survives contact with an actual game. And it has to work while everyone is slightly out of date with everyone else, because of everything we showed you last time. There is one more piece, and it is the one players feel without ever naming. Actions take time, and they take it on a shared clock. You commit to something, and for a moment, you are committed. That single constraint is what turns a fight from a race of button presses into a series of small bets. Firing at the wrong moment costs you the right one. Holding your best option for the moment it matters is a real choice, because you cannot simply use everything the instant it becomes available. Take that clock away, and combat collapses into whoever can press fastest, which is a test of hardware and youth rather than judgment. Every interesting decision in a fight comes from somewhere being unable to do everything at once, and that scarcity is designed, not incidental. The half of this that gets less attention is the creature's half. Something has to decide what it does, who it goes for, when it gives up on that and goes for someone else, what it does when it is losing, and whether it will follow you across the world or stop and go home. Get that wrong in the generous direction, and the game has no teeth. The enemy stands still and takes it. Get it wrong in the other direction, and it is not difficult. It is unfair. You are punished for things you were never shown. The honest version is that a creature should be predictable in its rules and unpredictable in its outcomes, so that losing feels like something you did rather than something that happened to you. There is also the question of when a creature stops. Something that will chase you across the entire world is not frightening for long. It is. And it turns every mistake into a 10-minute walk. Something that gives up the instant you step back is not frightening at all. Somewhere between those is a creature that behaves like it belongs to a place. It defends that place, it commits, and at some point it returns to it. Where exactly that line sits is a tuning question we will be arguing about for a long time, and we would rather argue about it out loud than pretend we got it right first try. Notice what the log is doing through all of this. Every blow, every heal, every death, written down as it happens. That is not there for the audience. It is there because when a fight goes wrong, it felt bad is not something you can fix, and a list of exactly what happened, in order, is. It is also the only honest way to settle an argument about difficulty. Everybody's memory of a fight they lost is wrong in the same direction. The record is not. So why prove all of that on an empty plane, when we could clearly have done it somewhere that looks like this? Because a good-looking fight hides a bad one. Put weather, terrain, and a view behind an encounter, and it will read as exciting, even when the decisions underneath it are mush. You will forgive a great deal while there is something to look at. Strip all of it away, and the fight is the only thing left in the frame. If it is boring on a flat plane, it is boring, and no amount of sky will fix it later. There is a second reason, and it is the practical one. On an empty plane, when something goes wrong, there is exactly one place it can have come from. No terrain to snag on, no slope changing what a step costs, no scenery to blame. The ugliest build we have is also the fastest one to debug, which is why it stayed the test bench long after we had somewhere prettier to work. Then the world arrived, and the fight moved into it unchanged. That is the part worth dwelling on. Nothing about the encounter was rebuilt for the scenery. The same rules about attention and damage and who dies when are running here. The difference is that now there is a hill in the way, a distance to cross, and something else moving further up the slope that you have to decide whether to care about. Terrain does something to combat that no amount of tuning can. It gives the space an opinion. A slope is a cost. A ridge is a decision about what you can see. Everything above you is a problem you have not met yet. None of that had to be programmed into the fight, because the fight was already asking those questions. It just had nowhere to ask them. Here is what we did not expect. The same encounter, at a different time of day, in different weather, is not the same encounter to the person playing it. Nothing changed in the rules. The creature has the same intentions in the rain that it has at noon. But a fight in falling light on an empty ridge is a different experience from a fight in the sun. And players will tell you the difficulty changed when it did not. That is not a bug to be corrected. It is the thing every atmospheric game is quietly trading on. And it only works if the underlying encounter is solid enough that mood is decoration rather than compensation. Which is the whole argument for the order we did this in. Build the fight where nothing can flatter it, then let the world flatter it. And sometimes it goes the other way, which it has to. A fight you cannot lose is not a fight. It is a chore with a timer. But losing has to be legible. You should be able to say what killed you, and more importantly, what you would do differently. That is why the dangerous things are marked on the ground before they matter, why the log keeps its record, and why the numbers are visible rather than hidden behind a feeling. We would rather a player be angry at themselves than confused. Confusion is the failure state. Anger means they understood, and it usually means they are about to try again. That principle has a cost, and we want to be straight about paying it. Making a fight legible means showing your hand. The dangerous ground is marked, the windup is visible, the numbers are on screen. A certain kind of difficulty comes from hiding all of that, and we are giving it up deliberately. The version of hard we are chasing is the one where you could see it coming and still have to solve it, not the one where the game withheld the information and called the result skill. The same goes for the group. When 3 players are relying on each other, a death is rarely down to a single mistake by a single one of them. It is a chain, and the chain is only visible if every link was reported. A fight that cannot be reconstructed afterwards cannot be learned from, and a game nobody can learn is a game nobody stays with. What happens after that? What dying costs you, what you keep, and how you come back is a whole system of its own, and it is where we are going next. 3 jobs, 1 enemy, and nowhere to hide. Proven somewhere with nothing in it. On purpose, so that when the world finally showed up, the fight did not need it. That is the pattern this whole project runs on, and we will keep showing you the unflattering half of it. The version where everything already looks finished is a trailer, assembled backwards from a result. This is the other thing, the work in the order it actually happened.